Welcome to another Nerd Alert! You may notice our new graphics, which look outstanding. They're courtesy of Tim Collins, not this Tim, the other Tim on the show. My name is Kim, just so that all the names of everyone working on the show rhyme, except Amir. We're going to talk about a lot of great stories today, or maybe not so great, rather. It's the passing of CISPA in Congress, crowdsourcing information to find the Boston bombers, and depressing fruit flies for fun and profit. So first we're going to talk about the latest news, the most important news right now, and that is catching and finding the Boston Marathon bombing suspects. Now, Reddit and 4chan played a huge role this week in piecing together information, looking at photos, finding patterns, getting clues, and they kind of did what the FBI told them to do when they said, do anything that you can to help us figure this out, but there have been a few missteps, as it were. They did name someone who turned out not to be the suspects the FBI named. But what is your take on all this?
Well, I mean, crowdsourcing to solve problems, solve crimes, find people, figure stuff out is not a new thing. Mm-hmm. Reddit's embraced it over the past couple of years, but as the best instance that comes to mind for me started 25 years ago, America's Most Wanted, with John Walsh.
Yes.
So they would go on the TV, they'd show you pictures of people they were looking for, and of the, I have this written down here, of the 1,100 or so episodes, that show made over 1,200 arrests.
That's very good, but it's still different because calling in with a tip is different than actively piecing together
it's
the
much
tips
different,
yourself.
but the idea itself isn't new.
Yeah.
Now, in this instance, it's sort of a too many cooks spoil the broth kind of situation. You have a lot of people working together with a lot of information, but stuff tends to get out of hand, out of control. You hear a name on a scanner or you see a tweet out there, and then all of a sudden he becomes your prime suspect when he's just some guy.
Yeah, you're talking about the missing Brown student.
Yes,
correct?
Sunil Tripathi.
Yes, and
apologies for pronunciation.
he was all over the internet last night. I'm speaking from a perspective that this is filmed on Friday, last night being Thursday, before we had names of the two suspects, the brothers.
Right.
And he wasn't the only one that was kind of singled out on Reddit to be a suspect. There were about maybe 10 people, and as someone pointed out, who knows, you may get lucky and your pet suspect turns out to be the bomber, but I've seen at least 10 people singled out, and not all of you are correct. You should be very, very careful about picking and choosing who you think might have killed 3 people and wounded many more, based on where they were standing and if they were carrying a backpack or not. And of course, they evoked Richard Jewell, who was falsely accused for an Olympic bombing.
Right, 1996, 1996, Atlanta.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, CNN has come under a lot of criticism lately for jumping the gun on stories, saying they have suspects, saying they have arrested someone, when that wasn't the case. Mm-hmm. It seems as though the people criticizing them, for the most part the internet, are not really much better.
Well, yes, because I don't want to, put the boot to anyone right now, but with my experience, as I did work in a local newsroom before I came to the Young Turks, and I actually that's how I won my Emmy, breaking news coverage for the death of Michael Jackson. When you're in a newsroom, there's information coming in from everywhere. You are listening to police scanners. There's also emails, phone tips, deferring phone tips. Like at the time, people were telling us, oh, Jeff Goldblum is also dead. And so is, all these other celebrities, and they turn out to be, misinformation. And we heard a lot of things on the scanners that were probably just conjecture from the police at that point. So it's a matter of weeding out that information and trying to figure out what is true and verifiable and what really happened. And it is a process. You don't see it as a viewer because you only see the end product. And it seems like maybe all this mulling around, maybe it was him, maybe it was that guy in the backpack on Reddit was kind of their newsroom discussion, but it was, since they were doing it from different places online, it wasn't something that was kept secret or quiet, so those mullings, those questionings came out everywhere. So it's not entirely different from how you would piece together a story in local news. And as you said, CNN did mess up. There is a heavy emphasis in news to be the one to break it, to be the one who's there first and live there first. And it's crazy how competitive it is and how much trouble you get in if you're the last one on the scene. So I can see why they all they're like, oh, well, CNN said it, let's all say it too. NBC was the only one who didn't fall into that trap.
Yeah, I would not have want to be a person doing anything remotely shady on that day in that area.
Yeah, or even standing there with a backpack.
Yeah, having a backpack makes you a suspect. The real key, though, is trying to avoid the game of whisper down the lane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have an innocuous tweet, my friend Sunil has been missing since the 16th, and then the next tweet is, Sunil hasn't been seen since the bombings, and then the next one is, Sunil, that sounds like a Muslim name, Muslim has been missing since bombings, then the next tweet is, he's in Guantanamo, and we have a suspect, he's captured,
Yeah.
These things get away from you so quickly if you don't have all the facts.
Well, the way also newsrooms gather information now does involve a lot of social media and does involve a lot of trolling Reddit. I believe one of the major outlets was basically reading through Reddit as they were doing their coverage of this Boston coverage on live TV.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the nature of how news is covered and how news gathering happens has changed so much, and it's kind of not easy to navigate. I'm not giving anyone a get out of jail free card, but it's very confusing. But Reddit has also done some good things by piecing together information. They found a carjacker among many other...
They're really good at retouching photos, enhancing photos to see license plate numbers, to identify people. You have thousands, millions of people with all kinds of different technologies and skills at hand. So in that instance, crowdsourcing becomes a great way to get stuff done quickly. On the other hand, there's no policing it. There's nobody saying this information is definitely right, this information is just speculation, this information is probably wrong.
It's hard to know. It's definitely a judgment call that many journalists, even experienced journalists, mess up on.